Good morning, this is Robert Sijpesteijn bringing you this morning's market update. Taking a look at the US close yesterday, both the US 500 and the US Tech 100 declined yesterday. The US 500 dropped 3.25 points, closing at 2083.68, however has since recovered, currently pricing above 2088. While the US Tech 100 fell 17.37 points to close at 4,516.63, since recovering some of that loss, currently pricing above 4,529. The Wall Street was the only indice not to drop points, however remained relatively flat, gaining 5 points on the day to close at 17,399. In US corporate news, Goldman Sachs Group Inc. has agreed to acquire an online banking unit from General Electric Company that has about $16 billion of deposits, giving the Wall Street firm access to a cheap source of funding. The acquisition won't include any physical assets, and the only financial assets are cash associated with the deposits. This transaction achieves greater funding, diversification, and strengthens the liquidity profile of GS Bank by providing an additional deposit gathering channel, Liz Beschel-Robinson from Goldman Sachs said in a statement. US banks are stretching away from their European rivals in global investment banking, taking advantage of strategic upheavals and concerns over capital to pile on market share. The top 5 US banks have taken 33.5% of the global investment banking fee pool so far this year, almost double the 5 highest ranked European banks, which accounted for 17.2%. The US banks have benefited from stability at the top, while 3 of the top 5 European banks have removed their chief executives within the past few months. For example, none of the top 5 US banks have made a change since Mike Corbett replaced Vikram Pandit at the helm of Citigroup almost 3 years ago. In the commodities sector, we saw a pullback from both oil and gold gains following an ease on concerns in China. Gold retreated from a 3-week high, dropping $12 to close on $1,114.5, while Brent crude saw what little gains it had made on Wednesday removed, closing again under the $50 mark at $49.61 a barrel. Over in Europe, indices continued their 3-day slump, with the UK 100 losing a further 31 points to close at 6,561.8, while the Germany 30 lost 50 points to close at 10,996.4. Early into this morning's trading, however, car makers and real estate companies have led European stocks higher, pairing their first weekly decline in 3 days. Auto-related shares rose the most among 19 industry groups, with Porsche SE climbing 2.4% after its board members were said to be cleared in a probe over a failed attempt to take over Volkswagen, while commodity stocks retreated, with Glencore Place falling 1%. In European news, Greek lawmakers approved a third bailout package in Athens. A vote tally showed the measures were approved with 220 votes for, 64 against, and 11 abstentions in the culmination of a 24-hour session. Approval by the Greek Parliament of the 3-year package of fiscal and structural reforms is one of the conditions set by creditors for making a first aid payment of €23 billion to cash-strapped Athens government. The funding would enable Greece to make a €3.2 billion payment due to the European Central Bank on August 20th, as well as covering further loan repayments to the IMF and providing fresh capital to Greece's 4 biggest banks. In today's corporate news, Bird's Eye owner Nomad Foods yesterday purchased the continental European operations of Findus Group for £500 million, adding to its growing stable of frozen food producers. And Glencore raised $290 million through the sale of its Tampakan copper project, as well as its stakes in the Falcondo nickel operations and Sipilo nickel operations. In today's market data and focus, at 9:30 in the UK, there's the construction output released. At 10 a.m, we see the EU Consumer Price Index released, along with the gross domestic product. And in the US, at 2:15, we see the industrial production released. That's all for this morning's market update. Thank you and goodbye.